Hey, welcome to Northumberland Zoo on YouTube. My name is Maxine and I work here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've got a lot to get through today because it has been a ridiculously long week and a half. We've been super busy. And a few of you rightly pulled me up on my last video that I totally forgot to announce some of the new species that are going into our tropical house. So I'll be announcing a couple of those by the end of this video. But first, I just want to start off in our curious creatures area. Now, some of you who may have been to the zoo in the last week and a half will notice that it has been closed off for maintenance and slightly lost the plot because we have got a bit of a cricket infestation. So this cricket infestation happened when we knocked the hothouse down. Those of you who might have visited the zoo in the last few years, when you went into the hothouse, there was this lovely ambience of crickets in there. And I thought, rather naively, I thought that when we knocked it down, they would all just die. But they didn't. Instead, they left that building and they moved into here and they moved into the bats as well, which is just a nightmare. We don't buy crickets in anymore to feed out. That's how they ended up here in the first place. You can buy them and feed them out to your reptiles and your geckos and frogs and stuff like that, but they were literally growing legs and hopping off and breeding, and that was it, and surviving forever. They do really well in like substrate enclosures, so all of these lovely naturally planted enclosures are just perfect for crickets to breed in. Luckily enough, they don't breed in this one or grow in this one because the frogs are on it and they eat everything in here. You can see this little guy's literally just sitting on top of his feed pot and just waiting for them to come out. So what we've done in here, which is a little bit extreme, is we've taken everything out. So all of these enclosures are completely bare. All the stick insects are off show. And this is because literally a couple of weeks ago when I was looking in here, all I could see, instead of looking at our lovely maclays or our cockroaches, I could just see an exhibit of crickets. And that was just so infuriating. So we took all of our stick insects off show, we've stripped all of the substrate out, we've been trapping them for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. We've got to be really careful about what sort of like insecticides or stuff like that we use, because obviously these are homes to insects and we've got our lovely leafcutter ant colony right here. So the last thing that we want to do is put anything toxic down. So we've been using treacle. So just pure sugary treacle, and we've been putting them in like these little waspbane pots. And we're drawing them out because what we didn't really realize, note to anyone who's going to be building mock rock walls and fascias for your lovely invertebrate tanks, make sure they are sealed, because what's happening is these little kind of like blobby bits on the walls where all the mesh is underneath is perfect for a little tiny cricket to get up in there and live and then breed, and it's just a nightmare. Now, can't actually hear any crickets right now in this bit, which is like a huge achievement. However, I can still hear them down here, which is just infuriating. All the tortoises have gone on holiday, so they're down in our displays building. But yeah, we've still got crickets in the wall here of the armadillo. Now, the bonus to this is that they shouldn't be able to breed or lay eggs in this wall. They need like a damp substrate, and it's too dry in here. So I'm really hoping that we get on top of them. So the plan moving forward from here, because like the life cycle for the crickets is like 12 weeks, is that we're just going to put leaf litter down in here because they can't lay eggs or breed in leaf litter. So you're going to see a lot of these enclosures with just leaf litter in them, so that we don't provide the crickets for more places to live. Like, it's just mind-blowing. It's got me, like, literally doolally tap, just mental trying to get rid of them. Because if we don't get on top of them now, when it gets a little bit warmer in the summer, they'll, like, have a lovely, like, splurge. Now, they can't survive outside, because they are, obviously, they're I think they're American species. So luckily enough, they're not going to, like, invade Britain. As soon as they step foot outside into the cold, they can't physically deal with that. So it is literally just in this building, it's nice and warm, and I can't turn the heating off because I don't really want to move my colony of ants off show somewhere, because that's really tricky. And if I turn the heating off in here, the crickets are just going to go somewhere else. So Anyways, that's why Curious Creatures is closed. So basically I'm starving them right now. But all of these exhibits are empty. But we have made a massive, massive dent in their population. So I'm hoping that, fingers crossed, we get there. So huge apologies to anyone who hasn't had chance to come into Curious Creatures. There's a few crickets in the walls in this bit as well, but they've only moved in here since we started like locking down in there. Because obviously now that we've taken all the insects out of there and everything, there's no food for them. There's nothing for them to eat. And we're being really clever with how we feed the armadillos, making sure we don't leave any food out for them, because the crickets are just all up on their food. You can hear the crickets in the wall in here, but they won't be getting any food in there, and the mouse lemurs and the vositsi and the sugar gliders will eat them. Anyways, that's enough about crickets. Honestly, I'm demented, I think, for want of a better word. I think all the staff at the zoo also think I've lost the plot as well, but it's just an infuriating problem to have. Right, okay, enough about crickets. It's just really annoying when you're trying to feed food out to an animal and the food walks off and breeds and creates its own life. It's annoying. Anyways, the other thing that happened this week was last Thursday we went to the Northeast Tourism Awards ceremony thing. It was at the Newcastle Civic Centre and it was a little bit frou-frou for what we're used to. You know, we don't normally do those type of like gala events. It was black tie as well, so... But yeah, we went along because we had been shortlisted for the Large Visitor Attraction of the Year award, as well as the Ethical, Responsible and Sustainable Tourism award too. We didn't expect to win anything because when we rocked up there, it was so busy. There were so many different nominations. There were 16 awards in total that they gave away. But yeah, the first one that came up was the Large Visitor Attraction of the Year award. Now, the stipulations for this is that you have to have at least 75,000 visitors a year. And that's it. So literally you're against like museums or theme parks, obviously zoos. It could be anything. So I think it must be particularly hard to judge, but we got bronze, which is insane. I wasn't expecting to get an award in that category. So yeah, pretty cool. And then the second award we were up for was the Ethical and Responsible Sustainable Award. And we actually won that.
This said the winner had sustainability embedded in all elements of the business, including locally sourced materials, renewable energy and recycling. So in reverse order, the winners are bronze, drumroll, Closing Park, silver, triangulating.
Check this out. So not only did we get a shiny bit of paper in the frame, but we got this super cool star, which I'm terrified of breaking. But yeah, you can't really read it that well, but I think I just made it worse. But yeah, look at that. Northumberland Zoo 2024. And what this means now is that now we have to go to the Uber ceremony, somewhere down south probably, for the National Tourism Awards. So I am not really sure how that works. I don't know if that means that we get judged again. I don't know if our judges' scores like carry through. I don't know. I don't even know when it is, where it is, or nothing. The only thing I've deduced is that last year it was in June. So I don't know. So we'll be in the National Awards. So we've got to get all done up and do it again. Very, very like mental process. Never did awards before, but yeah, well done to like everyone here at the zoo and of course our visitors for your support. And yeah, to be recognized for all of the effort that we put into our sustainability that we do here at the zoo with all of our energies and our recycling and our sourcing of materials and our sourcing of our products, you know, this is the type of standard that all tourist attractions should be setting, so we're super pleased to be recognized for all of these things that we work so hard on a daily basis. Is really, really cool. And to go and like our name be mentioned at a national awards is quite an honor. So yeah, really exciting news. So before we head down to the tropical house and see what's going on there and learn about a couple of the new species that we're getting in, I just wanted to say about a couple of other things that have happened in the last week, which I thought you might find quite interesting. First thing is, I went down to the Birmingham Sealife Centre to meet some very, very special residents there. They're the only collection in the UK that house this species. And I've always wanted to see them. I've never actually seen them in person. I would love to go out and actually see them in the wild in California, but I just haven't got there yet. But anyways, I went down to Birmingham to meet their sea otters. Now, the sea otters are huge. I couldn't believe how big they were. And the staff there were amazing. They let us go behind the scenes and actually meet these two and get to hand feed them some frozen bits of like I think it was oysters and mussels and stuff. They're like these little slabs. And obviously sea otters are totally different to any other type of otter because they haven't got like 4 proper like feet. They got like the 2 front feet and then they got these flappy little things on the back end of them, kind of like a seal. So they kind of drag their back end along, and I've never seen anything like it, but they were so sweet. Now they are rescues. Sea Life Centre got them in conjunction with an Alaskan rescue organization that specializes in rescuing sea otters. So it took them 2 years to actually get all the paperwork through to move those animals to the UK. So they were super sweet, and you can do sea otter encounters. They are available on the Birmingham Sealife website if you fancy meeting them. Because they've been rescued, they were hand-reared. So one of them was hand-reared from about 4 months, and the other one was like from 4 days. So one of them is super keen for human attention. So they are very, very interactive. And I imagine the keepers down there have such a great time. So thank you so much for letting us meet your sea otters. That was like the best thing ever. I know what you're going to ask me as well. Are we getting sea otters? Why did you go and see the sea otters specifically? I would really, really love sea otters here at Northumberland Zoo. I think that would be amazing. It would be a little bit weird because obviously we're not like an aquarium. But I think unless we do something incredibly drastic with our water supply, I just don't think we can sustain them. These animals are obviously they're majority water-based animals, and they need a large area to kind of swim in, and I just think that, and it has to be salt water, so it's not just water, it's salt water, and to have the facilities to actually create salt water, and we're not near enough the sea to pump it in. So as much as I would love sea otters, I don't want to say no, because I think I just secretly still really want some, but I think it's probably unrealistic unless we get another borehole, because for those of you who don't know, we're completely on a borehole. We have our own borehole we've dug in because we are not on the mains water down here. We used to be on a spring. So there's a spring at the top of the hill that fed all of our water needs, but it was an absolute nightmare before we got the borehole in on a hot summer's day, and it hadn't rained for like a week. We would run out of toilets by like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's just not cool. So now we have a borehole in which supplies us with as much water as what we need, but if we were to get sea otters in, we would need like another 1 or 2 boreholes or something like that. So it's not that it's impossible, but it's just, is that a priority? Just over this past weekend, I was down at London Zoo for the weekend, and that was for the ABWAC Symposium. And you're like, oh, what is ABWAC? So ABWAC is the Association of British and Irish Wild Animal Keepers. And it's open to anyone who's studying animal management, studying zoology, or anyone who is already a zookeeper, who's employed, working in a zoo, or also people who are managers or, directors of zoos as well. It's just a great way of networking and kind of information sharing between people within this industry. It was the 50th year of the ABWAC organization over the weekend. So that organization has been going since 1974. It was set up by a zookeeper way back then who thought it would be a great idea if zookeepers could share information with each other from different zoos to try and better the husbandry of the animals. And it's still got the same premise today. So it's a really, really cool organization to be part of, and to be able to sit on the council and help kind of drive the direction of where they're going. That's it's a pretty cool thing to be able to do. Every year they hold a big symposium over 2 days, and this year it was hosted by London Zoo. But one of my highlights of the weekend I just wanted to share with you, I got to go on the London Zoo library tour, which sounds a bit boring, but it's not, because London Zoo has like this huge vault. It's like underground, it's like 2 stories underground. I didn't get to go in there. But in there they have some of the rarest books. They very, very kindly got quite a few of these books out for us zoo geeks to have a look at, and they're super old, large books with like the original plates of like animals in them.
When books were published, usually people had to subscribe to it beforehand as a commitment because they were so expensive. So in the front you can see who has committed to subscribing. So we're here, the Zoological Society.
There was a book from the 1500s, which I didn't get the name of, but it has all these really, really old illustrations of what animals were first described to look at. So these people back based in the UK or in Europe or whatever, obviously, you know, back then you didn't travel around and see these animals for real. There wasn't any zoos, but you'd get these explorers that would come back from their expeditions. They'd be like, right, I saw this animal. It looks like a goat, but it's got a really long neck and it's spotty. So then these people that make these books would then have the job of like drawing their interpretation of what the animal looks like. So to actually see some of these initial illustrations of what people thought camels looked like, there's some animals illustrated that I can't even imagine what they look like, because you know, think about it, you know, 300-400 years ago, the only faces that we had ever seen were human faces, or cats and dogs and horses and domestic animals. So when these people drew these big cats or these primates, they often gave them very human-like faces. It's hilarious. But you know, imagine living back then and you saw this illustration of this mental giraffe or this weird human-faced cat. You'd be like, what is that running around? So yeah, I got to see some really, really cool books. The highlight was actually getting to touch and hold the first edition of The Origin of the Species by Charles Darwin.
We also have in the collection a first edition Origin of Species by Charles Darwin as well. And the big reason why I've asked you to wash and dry your hands is because you are welcome to hold it yourselves. So when you hold it, just hold it like I am. Try and hold it over the sponge rather than over the floor. And when you want to give it to someone else, either do it over the sponge or put it down and let someone else pick it up.
Which that book is worth an insane amount of money. We weren't allowed to open the book. It was very specific, but we could touch it and we could smell it and get our photo taken with it. So that was a huge, that was a really cool thing to do. And I'd recommend anyone is welcome to go to the London Zoo library. You just can make an appointment. And if there's anything in particular that you want to see, the librarians there were super enthusiastic and helpful. And I'm sure if you wanted to see something, they would probably can arrange that for you. So really, really interesting. And it was so cool that London Zoo put that on for us, so that, you know, not only, you know, us as part of the council, but, you know, the symposium delegates, the people attending the actual event, got to experience it too. So that was really cool. I enjoyed that. Anyways, shall we go down to the tropical house and see what's going on down there? Okie dokie. We are down in the tropical house. If you're still tuned in, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate there's a lot to digest in this video, and it's just, it's pretty intense. Right, so here we are in the tropical house. Just skype through here. It is incredibly densely planted now. We've still got a few more bits that we need to add in, and we're gonna add some more bark chip out here. But like I said in my video 2 weeks ago, even though we're gonna be getting the animals in here pretty imminently, they're not gonna have access to this bit through here because we'll just lose them. So The public area is getting worked on as well. I don't know if you can just see through those windows. I can't really be bothered to walk around, but I'll show you. There's a little bit of theming in there with some like animal crates, so we're getting a few more of them in there so we can stack them up and make them look a bit more forest jungly hut thingy. So what's one of the species that we're going to be getting in here? So I can confirm that we will be getting some pygmy marmosets in here. Now, pygmy marmosets are the world's smallest true monkey, right? So I'm going to get old David Attenborough on you now. So basically, a true monkey is a primate that has a tail. Prosimians are not included in a like monkey section. Prosimians and lemurs and that, they have their own leg off the weird tree of life. So ignore lemurs. So mouse lemurs are smaller than pygmy marmosets, but because it's a lemur, it's not classed as a monkey. So true monkeys are those with tails, and the other monkeys are like your great apes, which don't have tails, so they're not technically monkeys. Don't know if that made any sense, but obviously ask me if you've got a question on that. So pygmy marmoset is the smallest true monkey in the world from South America. They are a vulnerable species, and they weigh about 100 grams. So they are just ever so slightly bigger than a grey mouse lemur. And they're a gummivore. It's another good word for today. And a gummivore doesn't mean that they eat haribo. It means that they actually feed on the sap and the gum from trees. So they've got specially kind of modified dentition that helps them kind of like carve out a little of a hole in the bark, and they sit there and they draw the sap out of it. And the other thing they do, which is really cool, is that sometimes they make little traps. So they'll carve a little hole out and they'll sit over here and wait for like a butterfly or a bug or something to come over here and eat the gum, and then they eat the bug. So they're tiny. So we're imminent on these. We're just waiting for some tests to come through on them to make sure that they're nice and healthy, and we'll be going to collect them here pretty soon. With them being such a tiny species, you'll be incredibly lucky to spot them in here, but they're going to have a great life. Now, we are just getting a non-breeding group to start off with, so it's a single-sex group, and that is because we are not members of EAZA. Now, what's EAZA? So we are currently members of BIAZA, which you might have heard me talking about, and BIAZA is the British and Irish Association of Zoos and Aquaria. It's like the next level up from just having a zoo license. So if you meet the BIAZA standards, it means you excel in your conservation and your husbandry and your education. You know, you go above and beyond your zoo licensing. So becoming a member of BIAZA is really cool. To become a member of EAZA, which is the European Association of Zoos and Aquaria, you got to go another step further. So we have got our application in to be part of EAZA, but because of COVID and all that jazz, all of the applications are massively delayed. So we submitted our application in the autumn of last year. We're not going to get to see an inspector on site until probably the end of 2025. So because we're not members of EAZA yet, that means that we can't get access to certain breeding programs, or EEPs they call them, European Endangered Species Breeding Programs. And pygmy marmosets is one of those. So we can hold the species, we just aren't allowed to breed them or hold a breeding pair until we become members of EAZA. And what's really strange about that is that you can hold other endangered species and not be part of EAZA, like the snow leopards, and we've got the otters. So certain species tick the boxes and certain species don't. So it is a little bit frustrating sometimes trying to figure out what are we supposed to be doing and how do we do it. So anyways, pygmy marmosets will be the first animals that arrive, and they are going to be contained up in those holding areas for quite some time to make sure that we get them used to some kind of recall training, because once we let them out in here, it'll be like finding a needle in a haystack. But they'll stick together. They're like a family kind of unit, so they should hang out together, so that should help out. So the second species that I'm going to announce is another vulnerable species. These ones are a little bit tricky because they're not classified as a marmoset or a tamarin. They are literally classified as a monkey. And that's because of certain genetic traits they've got. They're very unique. And these are called Goaldi's monkeys. But some people do call them Goaldi's marmosets. So Gowaldi monkeys are 5 times bigger than a pygmy marmoset, so you're definitely going to have a better chance of seeing them. They're about 500 grams each. Comparing that to like our ring-tailed lemurs are about 2 to 2.5 kilos. So they're like another 5 times bigger than a Gowaldi. So Gowaldi is like, you know, a decent size black fluffy thing. So they're a vulnerable species. They're quite unique because they are on their own little like branch of the family tree. There's no other marmosets that are quite like them. Generally marmosets and tamarins like breed and they have twins or triplets, whereas Gowaldis just have one baby at a time. And that baby grows really quickly because it's getting all the resources to itself. So they are really, really pretty. For some reason, we can actually have a breeding pair of these, even though we're not part of EASA. So like I said, certain rules for some things and not others. So we are actually getting a male and a female in, so could potentially breed them, which is really cool. They do look the same, males and females, just like the pygmy marmosets. They also look the same as well. But we have got some species that we're looking at getting in here, which do look different between males and females. But I'll announce them soon when we know what we're getting for sure. It takes so long for zoos and transfers and paperwork and stuff to go through, so apologies for the delay on that. But yeah, the Gowaldis are coming from 2 separate collections, so we'll have to introduce them, whereas the pygmies are all coming from 1 collection, so they already know each other, so that kind of helps with them. But because Gowaldis are so family orientated and very social, we think the mixing will go really well because they do not do well on their own. So hopefully when we bring them both in, because we've got to time it just right, so we get them both in at the same time so they're not on their own. It's quite tricky. But again, we're just waiting on some more testing come back, because before you get animals arriving at your zoo, you always have to request all kinds of tests on them from their sending collection to make sure that you don't bring any nasty diseases or problems or viruses into your holding collection. That's the last thing that you want to do. So that's often the reason why transfers take so long. But yeah, so that's 2 of the species that we've got planned for in here. Obviously, I have told you in previous videos that we are going to be getting a ground-dwelling species in here. I will let you know what that is in a future video. They'll be arriving quite soon, because that transfer is all good to go as well. I just need to go and get them. But yeah, we're pretty much there. And the visitor area is coming together quite nicely. Like I said, I would like it open for Easter, but I mean, it's the 7th today, and Easter is like literally the end of this month. So if we've got to get them settled in and make sure that they're mixed okay, and we want to make sure this is all right for them, I don't want to make any promises. Maybe we can get it open for the end of Easter. I don't know. But keep an eye on this channel and I'll give you the updates as and when I get them. Before I head off, I just want to let you all know that it is British Science Week next week. So Sarah, our education officer, is doing all kinds of stuff on our Zoo Life channel. So you can tune in. She's going to be doing a live feed potentially. And we've got all kinds of different pre-recorded zookeeper interviews about our various different species on the Zoo Life platform. And if you haven't been on our Zoo Life channel yet, you just need to download our Northumberland Zoo app and you can access our webcams through there. You can even like control them and zoom in and out and stuff like that. We've got 1 webcam that's going into our bat soon as well, so we'll have a 3rd webcam on our service, which is really cool. But yeah, so British Science Week next week, so don't forget about that. Get your schools involved, get them to log in and see what it's all about. We'll put some more information on our social media. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys have got any questions, then do drop them in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I appreciate it. It was a massive thought drop. But yeah, I shall see you next week.